At family dinner, they laughed. Selling trash? Like a raccoon. Dad scoffed, this is embarrassing. I just smiled. Months later, they begged for help, but I said, you mean my garbage business? Too late, I own your house now. Their faces went pale. I can still hear their laughter. It wasn't just a chuckle or a giggle, it was full-on, roaring, gut-busting laughter. The kind that makes your stomach hurt. The kind that's meant to humiliate. All this time, I thought you were actually trying to build something, my mother scoffed, shaking her head. And you're just, what? A professional dumpster diver. My father nearly choked on his wine. So, let me get this straight. You quit your job to sell other people's trash. The whole table erupted. My cousin Mark wiped tears from his eyes. Oh my God, this is priceless, he gasped. You're telling me you pay money, actual money, to buy boxes of junk that people didn't even want? And then you try to sell it again? I forced a smile and took a sip of water. It's called Amazon Returns, I said, keeping my voice even. I buy liquidation pallets, sort the items, and resell them. There's a huge market for it. My sister, Claire, snorted into her drink. A huge market for used socks and broken blenders? More laughter. Oh, honey, my Aunt Linda said, shaking her head, this isn't a business. This is hoarding with extra steps. I exhaled slowly and set my fork down. They didn't know. They didn't know that last month alone, I had flipped enough inventory to make 5 times what I used to earn at my desk job. They didn't know that while they were laughing, I was quietly building a business that was about to outgrow my tiny garage. But they weren't done. My father leaned forward, his face serious now. You know, I tried to be patient with this whole entrepreneur thing, but this is embarrassing. You have a college degree, my mother added. And you're throwing it away to sell? What? Stained t-shirts and half-used lotions. You're literally selling garbage, Claire chimed in. Like a raccoon. Do you even wash the stuff before you list it? The table held. I took another sip of water and forced myself to smile. Let them laugh. Because in a few months, they wouldn't be laughing anymore. I let them laugh. I let them call me a trash collector, a raccoon, a junk dealer. What they didn't know, what they could never imagine, was that while they sat there mocking me, I was making more in a month than my father did in a year. But I didn't say anything. I let them dig their own graves. The warehouse of garbage. While they were sipping wine and complaining about gas prices, I was working. I started in my garage, flipping returns from Amazon pallets. A $600 pallet might have 3 broken toasters, a couple of ugly handbags, and, if I got lucky, a high-end kitchen appliance worth more than the entire box. I sorted, cleaned, repackaged, and sold everything on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and eventually my own website. My parents thought I was playing around. They thought I was a joke. Until the garage got too small. Until I had to rent a warehouse. Until I had to hire employees. But as I signed the lease for my first 5,000 square foot storage facility, I heard my father's voice in my head. Flashback. I was 15 when I first realized that, in my father's eyes, I didn't matter. We were sitting at the dinner table, and he was talking about my older brother, Ethan. He's got the brains, my father said proudly. He'll be a great lawyer one day. The only real future in this family. I was sitting right there. Right there. But it was like I was invisible. What about me? I asked, my voice quieter than I wanted it to be. My father barely glanced at me. You. He scoffed. Honey, just focus on getting a stable job. Maybe retail. Something simple. Just enough so a man will take care of you one day. I swallowed hard, my hands clenching under the table. What if I want to start my own business? That made him laugh. Business? Sweetheart, women don't run businesses. They work in them. And not even at the top. He waved his hand dismissively. Look, if you really want to do something useful, maybe you could work in a boutique. Sell clothes or something. But the big leagues? No offense, sweetheart, but that's a man's world. My mother nodded along like it was fact. And Ethan? Ethan just smirked. Because he knew. He knew that in our father's eyes, he was the golden one. The investment. The one who would make the family name proud. And me? I was a liability. The breaking point. 6 months after that humiliating dinner where they laughed at my business, my family invited me over again. Not because they missed me. Not because they wanted to apologize. No, because my father lost his job. Because my parents were drowning in debt. Because Ethan, the great lawyer, the family's golden boy, was a financial disaster. And now, the daughter they never believed in was their only hope. So, my mother started delicately, as we sat around the same dining table where they once mocked me. How's that? Little business of yours? I smiled. It's going well, I said, cutting into my steak. Really well, actually. Claire cleared her throat. So, what exactly do you do again? I mean, how do you even make money selling returns? I set my fork down. You mean the garbage business? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Claire's face twitched. Well, we were just worried about you, my father added quickly. You've always been different. Different. Right. That's what they called it when I refused to be like them. When I built something they could never understand. Then my mother finally said the words they had been avoiding all night. We were actually wondering if you'd be able to help us out a little, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Just for a few months, until your father finds another position. The audacity. The sheer, unbelievable audacity. They laughed at me for selling liquidation stock. They mocked me for not having a real job. And now? Now they wanted my help? I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. Funny, I said, I actually did help you. Just not in the way you expected. They all looked at me, confused. Then I dropped the bombshell. I bought the house, I said, grinning. The one you're living in. Silence. Absolute. Dead. Silence. My father's fork clattered onto his plate. My mother's face turned white. Claire's jaw literally dropped open. Mark, being Mark, blanked. Wait. What? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. You were behind on the mortgage, weren't you? I asked, feigning innocence. The bank was about to foreclose. And someone swooped in and bought it at auction. That someone was me. Claire gasped. My mother covered her mouth with her hand. My father's face twisted in horror. He couldn't even finish the sentence. Oh, and don't worry, I added, I'm a very generous landlord. Rent will only go up 10% next month. And just like that, the laughter was gone. You bought what? The sound of my father's chair scraping against the floor was deafening. He shot up so fast, I thought he might flip the table over. His face, usually so composed, so superior, was now a twisted mask of disbelief and rage. You're lying, he snapped, pointing a shaking finger at me. This is some kind of joke. I casually took another bite of my steak. No joke, I said, chewing slowly. I own this house now. The silence was suffocating. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her wine glass. Claire looked like she had just witnessed a murder. Mark kept blinking like his brain couldn't process reality. Then came the explosion. This is our family home. My mother clutched her chest like she was about to faint. You can't do this, she gasped. You wouldn't. I tilted my head. Oh, but I did. We raised you here, she screeched. This is where you grew up. You wouldn't be so cruel as to throw us out onto the street. I let that hang in the air for a moment, tapping my fingers on the table. Then I smirked. Oh, so now this house means something to you? I asked. Funny, because when I was younger, you made it very clear that Ethan was the only one who mattered. That I was just a temporary guest. Flashback, you'll never amount to anything. I was 17 when my father told me, straight to my face, that I was worthless. I had come home late after working an evening shift at a small retail store. Ethan, my golden boy brother, was sprawled on the couch, pretending to study law textbooks while my father beamed at him. I was exhausted. I had school in the morning, homework to do, and I smelled like cardboard boxes and cheap perfume. My father barely acknowledged me. That's what you're going to do for the rest of your life, he said, shaking his head in disappointment. You'll be lucky if you ever do more than folding clothes and scanning barcodes. Ethan chuckled from the couch. Retail suits you, he muttered. I clenched my fists. I want to start a business, I said firmly. I will start a business. My father smirked. Sure, sweetheart. Maybe you can sell candles on the sidewalk while Ethan fights real legal battles in a courtroom. The room burst into laughter. That was the day I stopped trying to earn their respect. Back in the present, my father was still fuming, his fists clenched at his sides. What do you want? He growled. Are you here to humiliate us? To flaunt your dirty garbage business in our faces? I leaned forward, my eyes locking onto his. No, I said, my voice low and deadly. I came to tell you that I don't owe you anything. Mark finally spoke, his voice shaky. Wait, he said, waving his hands. Let's just calm down. Maybe we can figure something out. I arched an eyebrow. Figure it out? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. The rent, she pleaded. You don't have to raise it, do you? I laughed right in her face. Oh, I absolutely do. And here's why. I pointed at each of them. You called me a loser. You laughed at my business. You said I was wasting my life. I stood up, towering over them. You didn't believe in me when I was struggling, I said coldly. You mocked me when I was building this empire from nothing. And now? Now you're sitting in a house that I own, begging me for mercy. I shook my head. No, not happening. My father slammed his fist on the table. We are your family. I crossed my arms. No, you made it very clear that Ethan was your family. Claire, who had been quiet this whole time, finally broke. Oh my God, she whispered. You actually want us to suffer. I turned to her, smiling. No, Claire. I want you to understand. She swallowed. Understand what? That you never should have laughed at me. Where's Ethan? Then I frowned, looking around. Speaking of which, where's Ethan? I asked. Isn't he supposed to be the family's savior? No one spoke. Then Mark let out a bitter chuckle. Ethan's broke, he muttered. I blinked. Excuse me? My father's jaw tightened. He lost his job, my mother admitted. The law firm let him go a few months ago. He's not doing well. I let out a sharp laugh. The great Ethan? I mocked. The only child worth investing in? The future lawyer who was supposed to make the family proud? He's broke. My father's nostrils flared. It's temporary. I shrugged. Well, maybe he can move into your guest room. We don't have a guest room, my mother said bitterly. I grinned. You will soon. They all froze. My father's voice turned deadly. What are you saying? I grabbed my purse and walked to the door. Before stepping out, I turned back and delivered the final blow. You have 30 days to vacate, I said sweetly. And if you don't, I'll sell the house to the highest bidder. My mother gasped. Claire screamed. And my father? For the first time in his miserable life, he was completely speechless. Crawling back. For 3 weeks, my phone was silent. No calls. No texts. No sudden family check-ins. I thought they were ignoring me out of pride. That maybe my father was out there, desperately trying to prove he could fix everything without my help. That my mother was planning to guilt-trip me at the last second. But no, because 3 weeks later, my doorbell rang. And there they were. My father, mother, Claire, and Mark, standing on my front porch in the rain, looking miserable. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. What do you want? For the first time in my entire life, my father struggled to speak. He looked like he wanted to yell at me, to command me to fix things like he always did. But he couldn't, because he wasn't in charge anymore. I was. It was my mother who finally broke the silence. We're sorry, she whispered. The words felt wrong coming from her, like she could barely force them out. I let the moment hang, savoring the discomfort. What exactly, I said slowly, are you sorry for? Claire sniffled. For laughing at you, she muttered. For treating your business like a joke. Mark nodded, shuffling his feet awkwardly. We didn't know how big it was, he admitted. My father was silent. I turned to him. And you? He clenched his jaw. I shouldn't have, he took a sharp breath. I shouldn't have dismissed you. I almost smiled. Almost. Because I knew why they were here. They had nowhere else to go. The deal. You still have 1 week left before I sell the house, I reminded them. So why are you here? My mother winced. We can't afford another place. I feigned surprise. Oh! What happened to Ethan? I thought he was the only one worth investing in. My father flinched. We reached out, my mother admitted. He said he can't help us. He's barely holding on himself. I shook my head. The golden boy had turned out to be nothing but a rusted trophy. I let them stand there, soaked from the rain, waiting for me to speak. Then I sighed dramatically. Well, I said, I might have a solution. Their eyes lit up. I'll let you stay in the house, I continued. But not for free. My father scowled. We're not beggars. I smirked. No, you're not. That's why I'm offering you jobs. Silence. Then my mother blinked. Jobs? Yes, jobs. I folded my arms. Since my garbage business is so beneath you, I thought I'd give you the opportunity to see how it really works. Firsthand. My father stiffened. You want us to work for you? I grinned. Exactly. The next Monday, they showed up at my warehouse. Dressed in cheap polo shirts and jeans, looking completely out of place. I walked them through everything, sorting pallets, testing electronics, checking return conditions. The very things they mocked me for, they were now forced to do themselves. Claire was put on clothing sorting. She had to inspect returned shoes, fold second-hand jeans, and log items into the system. Mark worked the electronics testing station, powering up laptops and phones to check for defects. My mother was assigned to customer service, answering emails and dealing with complaints about missing items and wrong orders. And my father? My father, the man who said women didn't belong in business, was given the most humiliating task of all. Manual labor. Lifting heavy boxes. Unpacking shipments. Breaking down cardboard. Sweating through his shirt while younger employees worked circles around him. I made sure everyone knew who they were. Made sure all my employees, the ones I hired when my father said I'd never make it, understood that these were my new trainees. And they hated every second of it. You think this is funny? By the end of the week, my father snapped. This is humiliating, he spat, slamming a box down onto the warehouse floor. You think this is funny? I stared at him, unfazed. I think it's educational. He glared. You're making a fool out of us. I walked up to him, my voice dropping low. No, I said. I'm teaching you. I gestured around the warehouse. This is what you laughed at, I continued. This is what you called garbage. This is what you thought was beneath you. And yet, this garbage paid off your debts. This garbage bought your house. This garbage is the only reason you're not living on the street. He swallowed hard. I stepped back, letting the words sink in. You're welcome. For the next 2 months, they worked. Every single day, they clocked in, followed orders, and earned their rent like everyone else. No special treatment. No favoritism. And slowly, they changed. Claire stopped complaining about dirty clothes and started appreciating how much money people were willing to spend on second-hand designer brands. Mark actually became good at electronics testing. He even suggested new ways to list refurbished items for higher profits. My mother, who once called me a failure, started bragging about my business to customers. And my father? My father, who once said women didn't belong in business, had to take orders from one. He stopped arguing. Stopped questioning. Because he finally understood. Epilogue, the real victory. 3 months later, they sat at the dinner table again. But this time, they weren't laughing. They were thanking me. You built something incredible, my mother admitted. Claire nodded. I never knew how hard this was, she said. I actually respect what you do now. And my father? For the first time in his life, he looked me in the eye and said something I never thought I'd hear. I was wrong. I let the words hang in the air, soaking them in. Then I smiled. I know. And for the first time ever, they finally saw me not as a joke, not as a failure, but as the one who won. The final twist. 3 months. For 3 months, my family worked for me. They swallowed their pride. They took orders from the daughter they once laughed at. They packed boxes, sorted clothes, and dealt with customers, the very same things they claimed were beneath them. And I thought, for a while, that maybe, just maybe, they had changed. But then I got the email. Emergency family meeting. My mother sent it like she was some kind of CEO. Subject: urgent discussion about our future. Message: we need to talk. As a family. Dinner at the house. No excuses. I smirked. Their house. The one with my name on the deed. Fine. I went. And that's when they hit me with their brilliant master plan. We've decided to take over. We've been thinking, my father started, his fingers interlocked like he was negotiating some high-stakes business deal. My mother smiled sweetly, the same fake, manipulative smile she always used when she was about to screw me over. You've built something amazing, she said. Really, truly incredible. Claire nodded enthusiastically. And we just think, well, we could help you run it better. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Mark cleared his throat, sitting up straighter. Look, you've done well, but let's be real. You've been lucky. You need experienced people to take this to the next level. I stared at them. Experienced? My father, the man who mocked my business from day one, nodded. We've all learned a lot these past few months, he said. And we think it's time to turn this into a real company. Something respectable. I tilted my head. Respectable? Claire leaned in. Yeah, like, drop the whole Amazon returns thing. It's low class. We could focus on high-end retail. Maybe even get investors. Investors, I repeated. My mother beamed. Yes, we could really turn this into a family empire. Mark grinned. And obviously, you'd still be part of it, but, you know, more like a creative consultant. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh my God, I whispered. You think you can just take my business? My father sighed, like I was being difficult. Sweetheart, don't think of it like that. Think of it as a promotion. You'd still be involved. But the family would be running things properly. I stared at them, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. They hadn't changed. Not really. They had just been waiting, biding their time, playing nice, working for me, until they thought they could take what I built and push me aside. They thought they could steal my success. Get out now. I stood up so fast, my chair scraped against the floor. They all flinched. No. My father frowned. No. I planted my hands on the table, leaning in. You don't get to make decisions about my company, I said, my voice ice cold. You don't get to turn it into some fake, respectable business because you're embarrassed by how I made my money. Claire scoffed. Come on, don't be dramatic. I snapped my head toward her. You called me a garbage seller. I laughed bitterly. You mocked me. You humiliated me. You all thought I was a joke. But now that I'm successful, suddenly you want in. I shook my head, grinning darkly. I'd rather burn it all to the ground than give any of you control. My father's face darkened. You're making a mistake. I laughed. No. You made the mistake when you underestimated me. I reached into my purse, pulled out an envelope, and slid it across the table. What's this? My mother asked hesitantly. I smiled. Your eviction notice. The aftermath. They were gone within a month. I raised the rent. They couldn't afford it. They begged. They pleaded. They screamed. I didn't care. They packed their things, muttering about how heartless I was. About how I abandoned my family. I let them say whatever they wanted. Because in the end, I won. Update: 1 year later. I was sitting in my office, watching my employees work through the security cameras when an email popped up. Subject: urgent, please read. Sender: Ethan. The golden boy returns. I clicked it. Hey sis. Long time no talk. Listen, I could really use a job. Things haven't been great for me. I was wondering if maybe you had a position open at your company? I know you're super successful now, and I'd love to be part of what you've built. Hope to hear from you soon. I stared at the email for a long time. Then I smiled. I did have an open position. I hit reply. Sure, Ethan. I've got a position for you. Warehouse work. Lifting boxes. No special treatment. Let me know if you're interested. Smiley face. I hit send. Then I leaned back in my chair, watching the orders roll in thousands of them, flowing into my website, making me more money in a single day than my family ever thought possible. The same family that once laughed at me. And now? They were all begging to work for me. The moral of the story? Never underestimate the one you laugh at. Because one day, they might own everything you have.